The wrench slipped from my greasy fingers and clattered onto the driveway concrete as my daughter's voice cut through the October night like a rusty blade. "You think Dad's going to win? Please. Aiden says he's buying this house out from under him. He's nothing but a washed-up soldier." I froze under the hood of my battered Ford pickup, the engine block suddenly feeling like it weighed 1,000 pounds on my chest. Maya's voice carried that particular brand of teenage cruelty that only comes from someone who's learned it from watching adults. "Maya, keep your voice down," came my wife Lily's response from inside our split-level ranch. But she wasn't defending me. She was just worried the neighbors might hear. Nice to know where I stand, I thought, wiping my hands on an oil-stained rag. 23 years of marriage, 18 years of raising that kid, and this is what I get. A front-row seat to my own character assassination. I'm Jake Morrison, by the way. 45 years old, ex-Army sergeant turned security consultant in this fading Midwestern town where the biggest thrill used to be Friday night football games. These days, the biggest thrill seems to be watching my life unravel in high definition. The Morrison family home sits on Maple Street, where every house looks like it was built in 1975 and hasn't been updated since. Mine's the one with the sagging gutters and the lawn that's more dandelion than grass. My neighbors are mostly retired factory workers and divorced secretaries who spend their evenings watching Netflix and posting neighborhood gossip on Facebook. Mrs. Gray next door has turned surveillance into an art form, her kitchen window positioned for maximum snooping potential. I closed the truck's hood and gathered my tools, listening to the muffled argument continuing inside. The past 6 months had been like this: cold dinners, colder conversations, and my wife's mysterious late-night strategy meetings for her new job with some hotshot politician's campaign. Aiden Blackwell. Even his name sounded like something out of a soap opera. Rising star in local politics, all white teeth and expensive suits, the kind of guy who'd never changed his own oil or thrown a punch that wasn't calculated for maximum political advantage. I'd met him exactly once at some campaign fundraiser Lily had dragged me to. He'd given me the kind of handshake that screamed, "I'm better than you," while his eyes were already moving to the next person worth his time. When Lily introduced me as her husband, he'd actually looked surprised, like she'd mentioned having a pet goldfish. Before we dive deeper into this story, I have one small request. Please subscribe, drop a like, and tell me in the comments what city you're watching from. "Jake does security consulting," she'd said, and I could hear the embarrassment in her voice. "Ah," Aiden had replied, that single syllable containing volumes about what he thought of my profession. How practical. I should have punched him right then. Would have saved everyone a lot of trouble. Instead, I'd smiled and excused myself to the bar, where I'd spent the rest of the evening watching my wife laugh at Aiden's jokes and touch his arm when she talked to him. The kind of touches that last just a second too long to be innocent. Now, standing in my driveway with grease under my fingernails and my daughter's words echoing in my head, I was starting to put the pieces together. The late nights, the new clothes, the way Lily had started pronouncing my name like it tasted bad. I walked around to the front of the house, past the campaign sign on our lawn, Blackwell for City Council, that had appeared one morning without anyone asking me how I felt about it. The porch light cast everything in harsh shadows, making our home look like something out of a horror movie. Through the living room window, I could see them clearly now. Maya sprawled on the couch with her phone, and Lily pacing back and forth in front of the fireplace, gesturing with her wine glass. My wife had always been beautiful. Auburn hair, green eyes, the kind of smile that could make you forget your own name. But lately, that smile had been reserved for everyone except me. "He's not going to just roll over and let us move," Maya was saying as I approached the front door. "Dad's too stubborn." "Your father will do what's best for everyone," Lily replied, but there was something in her voice I'd never heard before. A hardness. Like she was talking about a problem that needed to be solved, rather than a person she'd promised to love for as long as we both shall live. I put my hand on the doorknob and paused. Part of me wanted to walk in there and demand answers. Part of me wanted to pretend I hadn't heard anything and go back to fixing my truck. But the biggest part of me, the part that had kept me alive through 2 tours in Afghanistan, was telling me to gather intelligence before making any moves. So instead of going inside, I walked around to the side of the house where our bedroom window was. The curtains were drawn, but there was a gap just wide enough to see through. Lily was sitting on our bed, laptop open, talking to someone on video chat. Even from my limited angle, I could see who it was. Aiden Blackwell, looking like he was calling from some expensive hotel room. "He's outside working on that piece of junk truck," Lily was saying. "Jake's so predictable. Give him something mechanical to fix and he'll stay out there for hours." Aiden's laugh came through the laptop speakers. "Well, at least he's useful for something." Though I have to ask, what did you ever see in him? My wife of 23 years, actually giggled. I was young and stupid. I thought the whole strong, silent soldier thing was romantic. Now I realize it was just limited. "Limited," Aiden repeated, as if savoring the word. "That's generous. From where I sit, he looks more like a burden." "Not for much longer," Lily said, and something in her tone made my hands clench into fists. "My lawyer says we can have him out of the house within 60 days. Maya's already on board. She's tired of being embarrassed by him." "And the business?" "What business?" "Jake's little security consulting thing barely pays for his truck repairs. He's been living off my income for years." That was a lie. A flat-out documented lie. My security consulting brought in more money than her campaign job, but I'd never made an issue of it because that's what married people do. They pool their resources and work as a team. Apparently, I'd been the only one playing by those rules. "Once the divorce is final, we can start making real plans," Aiden was saying. "I've got my eye on that new development on the north side." Much more appropriate for a city councilman and his wife. His wife. They were already talking about marriage, and I was still finding out about the affair. I backed away from the window, my mind racing. 23 years. 2 decades of building a life together, of supporting each other through deployments and job changes, and Maya's childhood illnesses, and Lily's mother's funeral, and 1,000 other moments that I'd thought meant something. All of it was just limited. I walked back to my truck and sat on the tailgate, staring up at the stars and trying to process what I'd just learned. In the Army, we had a saying, "Know your enemy." Right now, I was realizing I'd been living with mine. My phone buzzed with a text message. For a wild moment, I thought maybe it was Lily, ready to come clean and ask for forgiveness. Instead, it was from my best friend Eli Martinez, who ran the VFW bar downtown. "Beer? You sound like you need one." I hadn't realized I'd sounded like anything, but Eli had always been good at reading people. It's what made him a good bartender and an even better friend. I texted back, "On my way." As I climbed into my truck and started the engine, I glanced back at the house. Lily was still on her video call, probably making plans for a future that didn't include me. Maya was still on the couch, scrolling through social media and probably posting about how much she hated her boring dad. The campaign sign on the lawn caught my headlights as I backed out of the driveway. Blackwell for City Council. "Well, Aiden," I thought as I shifted into drive, "let's see how well your campaign handles a little opposition research." The VFW bar looked like every other working-class dive in America, dim lighting, sticky floors, and the kind of regulars who'd been sitting on the same stools since the Carter administration. But it was honest in a way that my home hadn't been for months, and right now I needed honest more than I needed comfortable. Eli was behind the bar, polishing glasses with the methodical precision of someone who'd been doing it for 20 years. He looked up when I walked in, took one look at my face, and reached for the good whiskey without being asked. "That bad?" he said, sliding the glass across the bar. "Worse." I knocked back half the whiskey and felt it burn all the way down. "How long have you known?" Eli's expression didn't change, but his hands stopped moving. That was answer enough. "Couple months," he admitted. "Maybe 3. Wasn't sure how to bring it up. Everyone knows? Not everyone, but enough. He poured himself a shot and joined me. I'm sorry, Jake. I kept hoping I was wrong. I laughed, but there wasn't any humor in it. Nope. You were right on target. Just overheard my wife and daughter planning my eviction. Apparently. Your daughter said that. Maya's Team Aiden now. He's buying her a new life, and I'm just the old furniture that needs to be hauled away. Eli shook his head. Kids don't know what they're saying half the time. She'll come around. Will she? I finished my whiskey and gestured for another. Because from where I'm sitting, it looks like I've lost my family to a politician with good teeth and a bigger bank account. So what are you going to do about it? That was the question, wasn't it? In Afghanistan, when someone betrayed you, the solution was usually straightforward and permanent. But this wasn't a war zone, and these weren't enemy combatants. This was my wife and daughter, and despite everything they'd just put me through, I still loved them, which made this so much worse. I need information, I said finally. Real intelligence. Timeline, finances, who else knows what the endgame looks like? Eli nodded approvingly. Now you're thinking like a soldier instead of a victim. What do you need? Everything you've heard, everything you've seen, and anything else you can find out. Over the next hour, Eli laid out the intelligence network that exists in every small town. Bartenders, hairdressers, grocery store clerks, and postal workers. People who see everything and remember most of it. The affair had been going on for 4 months, starting shortly after Lily joined Blackwell's campaign. It wasn't exactly subtle. They'd been seen together at restaurants in the next town over, and Aiden had been picking Lily up from work in his silver Lexus when he thought I was out of town on business. Mrs. Patterson from the post office says Lily's been getting a lot of packages lately, Eli added. Expensive stuff. Clothes, jewelry, perfume, all from stores she could never afford on her campaign salary. He's been buying her gifts. Looks like it. And Jake? There's something else. Aiden's been asking questions about you, about your business, your military service, your finances, like he's building a file. That made sense. If you're going to steal a man's wife, you need to know how dangerous he might be when he finds out. The fact that Aiden was doing research meant he was taking this seriously. It also meant he was smart enough to be cautious. Good. Cautious people make predictable mistakes. What kind of questions? Whether you have any criminal history, whether you're violent, whether you have any powerful friends who might cause problems? Eli grinned. I may have implied that you're connected to some very unfriendly people from your army days. Eli. What? It's not technically a lie. You do know some unfriendly people from your army days. They just happen to be scattered across 3 continents and mostly retired. I had to admit, there was a certain satisfaction in knowing that Aiden Blackwell was losing sleep over my imaginary criminal connections. But satisfaction wasn't going to solve my problem. I need to see the evidence, I said. Photos, documents, something concrete. Already ahead of you. Eli pulled out his phone and showed me a series of photos. Aiden and Lily at a restaurant holding hands across the table. Aiden and Lily in the parking lot of the Marriott, kissing like teenagers. Aiden and Lily in his car, her hand on his thigh. Who took these? Mrs. Gray. Apparently, your neighbor has been conducting her own surveillance operation. She's got hours of footage. Of course she did. Mrs. Gray had always been nosy, but I'd never appreciated it until now. Can you get copies? Already done. She's got them stored on some cloud thing and she's been showing them to anyone who'll listen. The whole neighborhood knows, Jake. They're just waiting to see what you're going to do about it. What was I going to do about it? That was the question that had been eating at me since I'd overheard that conversation. In the old days, the answer would have been simple and violent. But I wasn't a soldier anymore, and this wasn't a battlefield. This required a different kind of warfare. I need to get into Lily's computer, I said, and her phone. See what kind of communications they've been having. That's illegal, isn't it? It's my house and my internet connection. and technically, I pay for her phone. I was rationalizing, and we both knew it, but I was past caring about legal niceties. Besides, if they're planning to divorce me, I need to know what I'm up against. Eli nodded slowly. When? Tomorrow. Lily has that campaign event at the community center. She'll be gone for hours. You want backup? I considered it. Having Eli there would make things easier, but it would also make him an accessory to whatever I was about to do. And I had a feeling that what I was about to do was going to get very messy very quickly. No, this is my fight. Jake. Eli's voice carried a warning. Don't do anything stupid. Don't do anything that'll give them ammunition to use against you. I'm not going to hurt anyone, I said, and I meant it. But I'm not going to just roll over and let them destroy me either. I finished my second whiskey and stood up. The alcohol had taken the edge off my anger, but it had also sharpened my focus. For the first time in months, I knew exactly what I needed to do. Thanks for the intelligence briefing, I said, dropping a 20 on the bar. Jake? Be careful. Aiden Blackwell isn't just some rich guy having an affair. He's got connections, political ambitions, and a lot to lose. That makes him dangerous. Good, I said, walking toward the door. Dangerous is something I understand. The drive home took 15 minutes, but I spent it planning my next moves. Intelligence gathering first, then strategic planning, then execution. It was the same process I'd used in Afghanistan, adapted for suburban warfare. The house was dark when I pulled into the driveway. Lily's car was gone, probably off having another strategy meeting with her boyfriend. Maya's bedroom light was on, but her music was loud enough that she wouldn't hear me moving around downstairs. I sat in my truck for a few minutes, looking at the house I'd called home for 15 years. Tomorrow, everything would change. Tomorrow, I'd stop being the victim and start being the hunter. But tonight, I was still just Jake Morrison, sitting in his driveway, trying to figure out how his life had gone so completely off the rails. My phone buzzed with a text from an unknown number. We need to talk. Coffee tomorrow, 10 a.m., Murphy's Diner. Come alone. A friend. I stared at the message for a long moment. Either someone was trying to help me, or this was the opening move in Aiden's counterattack. Either way, I'd find out tomorrow. I deleted the message and went inside to start gathering intelligence on my own wife. Murphy's Diner squatted on Route 9 like a chrome and neon monument to better times, when truckers still used the highway and the factory shifts changed 3 times a day. Now it mostly served coffee to retirees and gossip to anyone willing to listen. I arrived at 9:45, early enough to scope out the situation, but not so early that I looked paranoid. Old habits from the army: always know your exits, always have a backup plan, and never trust a meeting you didn't arrange yourself. The mysterious friend turned out to be Jennifer Walsh, Aiden Blackwell's former campaign manager. I recognized her from the fundraiser where I'd first met Aiden, though she looked different now. Less polished, more tired, like someone who'd been carrying a heavy secret for too long. She was sitting in a corner booth, nursing black coffee and checking her phone every 30 seconds. When she saw me, she waved me over with the kind of nervous energy that suggested this conversation was going to be very interesting. Mr. Morrison? Thank you for coming. She gestured to the seat across from her. I wasn't sure you'd show up. I almost didn't. I slid into the booth and signaled the waitress for coffee. You want to tell me why Aiden Blackwell's campaign manager wants to have a secret meeting with the husband he's trying to replace? Jennifer's laugh was bitter. Former campaign manager. I was fired 3 weeks ago. Officially, it was budget cuts. Unofficially, I knew too much about things that weren't supposed to be public knowledge. Such as your wife isn't the first married woman Aiden's had an affair with. She's just the most recent. Jennifer opened a manila folder and spread several photographs across the table. Meet Rebecca Chen, wife of the county treasurer, and Sarah Williams, married to the police chief, and Linda Rodriguez, whose husband owns half the commercial real estate in town. I studied the photos. Same pattern in each one. Aiden with a different married woman, always somewhere discreet, always looking very intimate. How many? 7 that I know of. Probably more. Jennifer's voice was tight with disgust. It's his thing. He targets wives of influential men, seduces them, uses them to get information and leverage, then moves on to the next target. And you helped him? I thought they were legitimate relationships that just happened to be complicated. I was naive. She pulled out another set of documents. It wasn't until I started seeing the pattern that I realized what was really happening. These weren't affairs. They were operations. The waitress brought my coffee, and I used the interruption to process what Jennifer was telling me. Aiden wasn't just stealing my wife. He was running some kind of systematic campaign to compromise the husbands of powerful men in town. What's the end game? I asked. Political control. Every one of these women has access to inside information about their husband's business or position. Rebecca Chen knows which properties the county is planning to buy for development. Sarah Williams knows which businesses are under police investigation. Linda Rodriguez knows which buildings are going up for sale before they hit the market. And Lily? Jennifer hesitated. Your wife works directly with the campaign's financial records. She knows who's donating money, how much, and what they're expecting in return. That's incredibly valuable information for someone planning a political career. I felt something cold settle in my stomach. So this was never about love. Aiden targeted Lily because of what she could give him access to. I'm sorry, Mr. Morrison. I really am. When I figured out what was happening, I tried to warn some of the other wives, but they wouldn't listen. They all thought they were special, that Aiden really loved them. Why are you telling me this? Jennifer closed the folder and leaned back in the booth. Because you're different. The other husbands were all politicians or businessmen who had too much to lose by making a scene. They all quietly accepted the situation and tried to minimize the damage. But I'm just a burden with nothing left to lose. You're a soldier who knows how to fight back, and Aiden is scared of you. That was interesting. Scared how? He's been asking questions about your military service, your connections, whether you have any history of violence. He's also been trying to dig up dirt on your business, looking for anything he can use to discredit you if this goes public. Find anything? Nothing. You're annoyingly clean. Jennifer almost smiled. Which is why he's trying a different approach. He's planning to have Lily file a restraining order against you, claiming you've been threatening her and your daughter. My coffee cup froze halfway to my lips. What? Domestic violence allegations. Even if they're false, even if they're eventually dismissed, they'll destroy your reputation and your business. Who's going to hire a security consultant who can't even keep his own family safe? The pieces were falling into place now. This wasn't just about stealing my wife. It was about destroying me completely. Aiden couldn't just win. He had to make sure I could never fight back. When? Soon. Maybe this week. Lily's been documenting everything you do, looking for anything that could be twisted into threatening behavior. The late nights working on your truck, the times you've raised your voice during arguments, even your friendship with Eli, they're going to paint it all as part of a pattern of intimidation. I set down my coffee cup very carefully. You have proof of this? Jennifer slid a flash drive across the table. Emails, text messages, voicemails, photos, everything I could gather before they fired me. It's all there. I pocketed the flash drive. Why are you doing this? What do you get out of it? Revenge, she said simply. Aiden Blackwell destroyed my career and my reputation because I asked too many questions. I want to see him burn. Fair enough. In my experience, the best allies were people who had their own reasons for wanting your enemy destroyed. What do you need from me? I asked. Nothing. Just, when you make your move, make sure it counts. because you're only going to get one shot at this, and if you miss, he'll destroy you." Jennifer stood up and dropped a $10 bill on the table. "Good luck, Mr. Morrison. I hope you give him hell." She walked out of the diner, leaving me alone with my coffee and a flash drive full of evidence that my marriage had been a lie from the beginning. I sat there for another 20 minutes, thinking through everything I'd learned. Aiden Blackwell wasn't just a politician having an affair. He was a predator who systematically targeted and destroyed families for political gain. My wife wasn't just unfaithful. She was an active participant in a plan to frame me for domestic violence. And my daughter, God, what had they told Maya to turn her against me so completely? I paid for my coffee and walked out to my truck, my mind already working through the tactical situation. This was war now, and wars were won by the side that best understood their enemy's weaknesses. Aiden's weakness was his arrogance. He thought he was smarter than everyone else, that he could manipulate people without consequences. He'd never faced someone who'd been trained to fight dirty and win at all costs. Lily's weakness was her ambition. She wanted the lifestyle that Aiden could provide, and she was willing to sacrifice everything, including her own family, to get it. And Maya's weakness was that she was 18 years old and thought she knew everything. That could be fixed if I played it right. I drove home with a plan forming in my mind. It was risky, probably illegal in several different ways, and guaranteed to burn every bridge I had left. But it would work. And when it was over, Aiden Blackwell would wish he'd never heard the name Morrison. The house felt different when I walked in, like a crime scene that hadn't been discovered yet. Everything looked the same: Lily's coffee mug in the sink, Maya's textbooks scattered on the dining room table, the family photos still hanging on the walls. But now I knew the truth behind the facade. I was living with enemies who were planning my destruction. Lily's laptop was in the bedroom, password protected but not encrypted. She'd always been careless with technology, using the same password for everything. Maya 2005, the year our daughter was born. It took me less than 5 minutes to access her email account. The affair had been going on for 6 months, not 4 like Eli had thought. But more than that, the emails between Lily and Aiden read like intelligence reports. Lily was systematically documenting my daily routine, my business contacts, my financial records, even my conversations with Maya. "Jake seems suspicious lately," she'd written just 3 days ago. "He's been asking questions about my work schedule and paying more attention to my phone calls. We might need to accelerate the timeline." Aiden's response was chilling. "Don't worry about Jake. I've got people looking into his background, and we're building a solid case for the restraining order. Once that's in place, he'll be neutralized. Just keep documenting everything and stick to the script we discussed." The script. I scrolled through more emails and found it. A detailed plan for how Lily should behave to build a case for domestic violence. She was supposed to provoke arguments and then document my threatening responses. She was supposed to take photos of any damage around the house and claim I'd caused it in fits of rage. She was even supposed to coach Maya on what to say if anyone asked about our family life. My own wife had been running a psychological operation against me for months, but the worst part was yet to come. In a folder labeled Future Plans, I found emails discussing what would happen after the divorce was final. Aiden and Lily were planning to move to the state capital, where Aiden had been offered a position in the governor's administration. Maya would come with them, and I would be left with nothing. No family, no reputation, and probably no business once word got out about the domestic violence allegations. "Jake will probably try to fight the custody arrangement," Lily had written. "But with his history of instability and the restraining order on file, no judge will give him more than supervised visitation." Maya's already on board with the move. She's excited about starting over somewhere new. History of instability. They were going to use my military service against me, probably claiming I had PTSD or anger management issues. It was a perfect strategy. Who was going to believe the word of an unstable ex-soldier over a respected politician and his new wife? I copied everything to the flash drive Jennifer had given me, then moved on to Lily's phone. She'd left it charging on the nightstand, another sign of how completely she underestimated me. The text messages were even worse than the emails. Intimate conversations with Aiden, mocking references to me and our marriage, and detailed discussions about how to manipulate Maya's emotions to turn her against me. She still loves her dad, Lily had texted just yesterday. But she's starting to see him the way we need her to. A few more weeks and she'll be completely on our side. Aiden's response: good. The daughter's testimony will be crucial if Jake tries to fight the custody arrangement. Make sure she understands what's at stake. What's at stake? They were using my own daughter as a weapon against me, and she didn't even know it. I was copying the text messages when I heard Maya's key in the front door. She was home early from school, probably skipping her last class like she'd been doing more and more often lately. I quickly closed the phone and moved to my home office, pulling up some legitimate work files to look busy. "Dad?" Maya's voice carried down the hallway. "You home? In the office?" I called back, trying to keep my voice normal. "How was school?" She appeared in the doorway, backpack slung over one shoulder, looking like any normal teenager except for the guilt in her eyes. "Fine. Boring. The usual." "Your mom's not home yet?" "Campaign stuff." Maya shifted uncomfortably. "She's been working really hard lately. You know, for the election." I studied my daughter's face, looking for signs of the manipulation I'd read about in those text messages. She was trying to act normal, but there was something forced about it, like she was following a script. "Maya, can we talk for a minute?" She tensed up immediately. "About what?" "About us. About our family. I feel like we've been drifting apart lately, and I want to understand why." For just a moment, I saw a flicker of the little girl who used to climb onto my lap and ask me to read her bedtime stories. But then it was gone, replaced by the cold stranger she'd become. "There's nothing to talk about, Dad. Everything's fine." "Is it? Because it feels like you've been angry with me for months, and I don't know what I did wrong." Maya looked away, focusing on something over my shoulder. "I'm not angry. I'm just growing up. Things change." "What things?" "Everything!" The word exploded out of her with more force than she'd intended. "God, Dad, do you really not see it? You're stuck in the past, working on that stupid truck, hanging out at that depressing bar with Eli, acting like everything's the same as it was when I was 10 years old. And that's bad? It's pathetic." She was warming up now, and I could hear echoes of Lily's voice in her words. Mom's building a real career, making important connections, doing something that matters, and you're just there, taking up space. The same phrases I'd heard from Lily and Aiden now coming from my daughter's mouth. "Maya, who told you that?" "Nobody told me anything. I can see it for myself." But her voice wavered slightly, and I knew she was repeating things she'd heard rather than expressing her own thoughts. "What else can you see?" She crossed her arms defensively. "I can see that Mom's happier when you're not around. I can see that you make her stressed and worried all the time. I can see that maybe things would be better if..." "If what?" "If you weren't here anymore." The words hit me like a physical blow, but I kept my expression neutral. This was my daughter talking, but these weren't her words. Someone had been poisoning her mind against me, feeding her a narrative that cast me as the villain in my own family's story. "Maya, has your mother talked to you about divorce?" Her eyes widened, and I knew I'd hit the target. No." "Why would you ask that?" "Because you sound like someone who's already made peace with the idea of me not being here anymore. That's not..." She stopped, realizing she'd revealed too much. "I have homework to do." She turned to leave, but I called after her. "Maya, I love you. No matter what anyone tells you, no matter what happens between your mother and me, That will never change. She paused in the doorway, and for a second I thought she might turn around and tell me the truth about what was really going on. Instead, she said, "Love isn't enough, Dad. Sometimes people just grow apart." Then she was gone, leaving me alone in my office with the evidence of my family's betrayal spread across my desk. I spent the next hour going through everything I'd gathered: Jennifer's files, Lily's emails, the text messages, the photos Mrs. Gray had taken. It painted a picture of a conspiracy that had been months in the making, with me as the unwitting target. But now I knew the truth. And in warfare, intelligence was the most powerful weapon you could have. I was organizing the files when my phone rang. The caller ID showed Eli's name. "Jake? You need to get down here right now." "What's wrong?" "Aiden Blackwell just walked into my bar with 2 guys in suits. They're asking questions about you, and they're not being subtle about it." I felt a cold smile spread across my face. On my way. The war had officially begun. The VFW bar had never seen anything like Aiden Blackwell and his 2-man entourage. They stuck out like peacocks in a henhouse, expensive suits, perfect haircuts, and the kind of confidence that comes from never having been punched in the face. I parked across the street and watched through the window for a few minutes, assessing the situation. Aiden was sitting at the bar, gesturing animatedly while he talked to Eli. The 2 suits were positioned near the door and the back exit. Professional security, probably off-duty cops working private gigs. This wasn't a casual visit. This was an intimidation tactic. I walked in through the front door, making no effort to be subtle about it. The conversation at the bar stopped immediately, and all eyes turned toward me. The regulars, mostly Vietnam vets and retired factory workers, looked like they were expecting a show. Well, I said, walking slowly toward the bar. "Aiden Blackwell, what brings you to our humble establishment?" Aiden turned on his stool to face me, that politician's smile firmly in place. "Jake? What a coincidence. I was just having a conversation with your friend Eli about community relations." "Community relations?" I took the stool next to him, close enough that he had to crane his neck to maintain eye contact. "That's interesting. What specifically were you discussing?" "Oh, the importance of local businesses maintaining good relationships with law enforcement. The value of cooperation when problems arise." His smile never wavered, but I could see the tension in his shoulders. The kind of problems that can hurt everyone involved. I looked at Eli, who was polishing glasses with more force than necessary. "Eli, what kind of problems is Mr. Blackwell concerned about?" "He seems to think you might be a danger to your family," Eli said carefully. "He's worried about Lily and Maya's safety." "Their safety?" I turned back to Aiden, genuinely curious. "What exactly do you think I'm going to do to them?" "Well, Jake, we both know that military veterans sometimes struggle with adjustment issues, PTSD, anger management, substance abuse." He gestured toward my beer. "When marriages fall apart, those issues can sometimes manifest in dangerous ways." "Dangerous ways," I repeated. "Such as domestic violence, stalking, harassment." Aiden's voice carried the practiced cadence of someone who'd given this speech before. "Lily's told me about some of the incidents at home. The shouting matches, the threats, the way you've been monitoring her activities." I felt every eye in the bar focused on our conversation. The regulars knew me, knew I wasn't the kind of man who'd hurt a woman or child. But they were also hearing these accusations for the first time, and doubt was a powerful thing. "What incidents?" I asked quietly. "The night you threw a wrench at the garage wall, the time you grabbed Lily's wrist during an argument, the way you've been following her, checking her phone, interrogating Maya about her mother's whereabouts." Aiden was gaining confidence now, probably thinking he had me on the defensive. "These are classic signs of an abusive personality, Jake. And they're all documented. Documented. Of course they were. Every interaction I'd had with my family over the past few months had been recorded, photographed, and twisted into evidence of my supposed instability. "You know what's interesting, Aiden?" I said, pulling out my phone. "I've been doing some documenting of my own." I opened the photo gallery and showed him one of Mrs. Gray's pictures, him and Lily kissing in the parking lot of the Marriott Hotel. His politician's smile finally cracked. "I'm not sure what you think that proves," he said, but his voice had lost some of its confidence. "Oh, it doesn't prove anything by itself. But when you combine it with the hotel receipts, the credit card statements for jewelry purchases, the emails discussing your operation against me, and the text messages where you and my wife plan to use my daughter as a witness against me," I shrugged. "Well, it starts to paint a pretty clear picture." The color drained from Aiden's face. "I don't know what you think you found, but I found everything, Aiden. The whole plan. The fake domestic violence allegations, the restraining order, the custody battle, even your job offer in the state capitol." I leaned closer, lowering my voice so only he could hear. "I know about Rebecca Chen and Sarah Williams and Linda Rodriguez. I know about all of them." One of the suits stepped forward. "Mr. Blackwell, maybe we should go." "No," Aiden said, his composure returning. "Jake's obviously been through my personal communications illegally. That's a federal crime. We should call the police right now." "Go ahead," I said, pulling out the flash drive Jennifer had given me. "I'm sure they'd be very interested in this evidence of your systematic campaign to blackmail and manipulate the wives of prominent citizens. I bet the FBI would find it fascinating." Aiden stared at the flash drive like it was a loaded gun. "Where did you get that?" "From someone who got tired of watching you destroy families for political gain." I pocketed the drive. "Someone who decided it was time for you to face some consequences." "You don't understand the situation you're in, Jake." Aiden's mask was slipping now, revealing something cold and calculating underneath. "I have connections, resources, political influence. You're just a washed-up soldier with a failing marriage and a drinking problem." "Maybe, but I'm a washed-up soldier who knows how to fight dirty and win." I stood up from my stool. "Here's what's going to happen, Aiden. You're going to end your relationship with my wife. You're going to withdraw from the city council race, and you're going to leave town." Aiden laughed, but it sounded forced. "Or what?" "Or I release everything I've found to the local media, the state attorney general's office, and every social media platform I can think of. Your political career will be over before it starts, and you'll be lucky if you don't end up in prison for conspiracy and fraud." "You're bluffing." I pulled out my phone and opened my email app. "Let's find out. I've got a draft message ready to send to Channel 7 News, the county prosecutor, and about 50 other recipients. All I have to do is hit send." My finger hovered over the screen. Around us, the bar had gone completely silent. Even the jukebox seemed to be holding its breath. Aiden stared at my phone for a long moment, then at me. "You'd destroy your own wife to get revenge on me?" "My wife destroyed herself when she decided to frame me for domestic violence. I'm just making sure she faces the consequences." I met his eyes. "You have 24 hours to make your decision, Aiden. After that, the choice is out of your hands." I walked toward the door, then paused and turned back. "Oh, and Aiden? If you or your friends here come near me or my family again, if you make any more threats, if you so much as drive past my house, I'll consider it an act of war. And trust me, you don't want to go to war with me." The two suits moved to block my path, but Aiden waved them off. Let him go. I walked out of the bar and into the parking lot, my heart pounding with adrenaline. Behind me, I could hear urgent, hushed conversation as Aiden tried to figure out his next move. I'd just declared war on a man with political connections and unlimited resources. It was probably the stupidest thing I'd ever done. It was also the most satisfying. My phone buzzed with a text from Lily. Where are you? We need to talk. I smiled and typed back, on my way home. We definitely need to talk. The final battle was about to begin.